Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Government is mulling raising of retirement age of judges.
This will require a constitutional amendment. It's a very onerous procedure which will have to be taken up.
Naturally, there's going to be debate, there's going to be discussion.
There is no transparency in all these matters.
Good evening. For months now, the Indian judiciary has been in the headlines primarily because of a rebellion against Chief Justice Deepak Mishra. Now CNN News 18 has been running all through the day the biggest scoop that has shaken up both top legal circles as well as top political circles. We've brought to you the story of the government's plan against Chief Justice Deepak Mishra. Now CNN News 18 has been running all through the day the biggest scoop that has shaken up both top legal circles as well as top political circles. We've brought to you the story of the government's plan to tackle the shortage of judges both in the Supreme Court as well as in various high courts. Top government sources have told us that this plan could come into motion very soon if it is approved by Parliament. The government is mulling bringing a bill, a constitutional amendment bill, as early as the monsoon session of Parliament to try and raise the retirement age of judges. The bill will seek to raise the retirement age of the higher judiciary. Like I said, the government's plan, its intention is to bring this bill as quickly as this current session of Parliament. The bill will basically propose raising the retirement age of Supreme Court judges from the current level of 65 to 67. The same bill will also propose raising the retirement age of High Court judges from 62 to 64. Remember, both of these ages, 64 for High Court judges and 65 for Supreme Court judges, are frozen by the Constitution. So if you have to do this, if the government has to do this, they have to bring in a constitutional amendment bill. The government is expected to cite the massive shortage of judges in the higher judiciary. There is a massive backlog of cases, not just at the Supreme Court and the High Courts, but across the judiciary in this country. A parliamentary panel, a high-profile parliamentary panel at that had looked into this issue on higher judicial reform, had gone into this threadbare and had submitted a report back in January where they recommended exactly this, that the retirement age of judges of the Supreme Court and High Court have to be raised. Now, let's be absolutely clear about this. It's not just about raising the retirement age of judges by a couple of years. It is a bill that will have far-reaching consequences. Take a look at some of the great implications that this bill will have if it is passed in the current monsoon session of Parliament. Number one, and straight away, this is the first big implication. The current Chief Justice, Deepak Mishra, his term ends as per the current schedule, 2nd of October this year. If this bill were to go through and if the necessary notifications post the amendment of the Constitution were to be issued in time, then it automatically means that the current Chief Justice, the incumbent Chief Justice, will get a 2-year extension by de facto because his term will then go all the way up to the 2nd of October 2020. The second big implication would be this. The man who is next in line to succeed Justice Deepak Mishra is Justice Ranjan Gogoi. He's number 2, and he was, remember, one of the 4 judges who rebelled and had that public press conference back in January. This means that Justice Gogoi will not be able to become the Chief Justice of India till 2020. And his term, if at all he does become Chief Justice, will only be for a year, which will be substantially less than what it would be if this bill were not to be passed and under the current circumstances where he will be Chief Justice from the 3rd of October this year. The implication number 3 is that there are several high-profile cases. The Ram Janmabhoomi title dispute case, for example, is being heard by a bench headed by the Chief Justice. The Aadhaar case is heard by the Chief Justice's bench. Section 377 and what to do about that is also being heard by CJI Mishra. So a whole host of very, very important legal matters are currently being heard by different constitution benches headed by the Chief Justice. If he's not able to arrive at a conclusion by his current retirement date of 2nd of October 2018, it will mean that automatically the bench changes. A new bench will have to continue hearing the matter. But that may not necessarily be the case if this Constitution Amendment Bill were to be brought in and it's passed with 2/3 majority in both Houses of Parliament of members present and voting. Let's try and put this into perspective. This is a huge, huge story, the ramifications of which run way beyond the corridors of the Supreme Court. Let me bring in two of the finest and most articulate legal come political faces on this story. We've got Abhishek Manu Singhvi, spokesperson and Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament of the Congress Party, and Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, BJP Member of Parliament, joining us, and a top legal voice as well. Let me start with you, Abhishek Manu Singhvi. The government's intention is to bring this bill, a constitution amendment bill, to raise the retirement age of Supreme Court as well as High Court judges. Supreme Court from 65 to 67 and High Court from 62 to 64. In principle, Abhishek Manu Singhvi, do you as Congress spokesperson and as an eminent Supreme Court lawyer support this?
The need of the hour for many decades has been to equalize the retirement age between High Court and Supreme Court judges, namely to eliminate this very strange arbitrage or dichotomy between 62 and 65. This dichotomy is wholly unnecessary. Judiciary is a special branch. 62 is no age of retirement. You have huge vacancies. You don't need to find fresh talent for this arbitrage of 3 years, and it creates some very unbecoming conduct sometimes. So this should have been equalized. In fact, I was one of the first to move a private member's bill for it. Number two, the need of the hour, the urgency, the necessity is certainly not to increase the ages to 64 and 67 and maintain this arbitrage, because the problem lies in this difference. Thirdly,
Okay,
I'm coming to the third point.
Okay.
Thirdly, this proposal coming at this time is certainly not a very innocent kind of a proposal. It has come suddenly out of the blue. There has been no discussion at all on this subject for all these months and years. Just before the election, something is brought about. No attempt to generate a consensus is made. No less than an Attorney General makes this kind of an initiative at a farewell function. I think all this is extremely unseemly, unnecessary, and really sends its own signal. I don't want to say more. I don't think there is a constitutional majority to make such constitutional changes. Then why float this balloon just before elections? It appears clearly to have ulterior motives, which I don't intend to go into now.
Fair enough. It's a trial balloon. It's being floated just before the election, and you believe that it could possibly have ulterior motives. Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, respond to that. Do you feel, as Abhishek Manu Singhvi has suggested, that this could very well nigh be a trial balloon, the government doing this, that too less than a year to go for the Lok Sabha elections? Yes, in principle, and nobody is saying that this is not the case. In principle, yes, you need to increase the number of judges, and therefore one way of meeting the shortfall and meeting the large pendency of cases is to raise the retirement age. But is this the way to go about it? Is the timing suspect? Is the motivation suspect?
You are senile. Well, in abstract, yes, it's a welcome move, and I think it's not enough. United States, by the way, the Supreme Court, there's no retirement age. If you fall dead or the Supreme Court doctors describe you as senile, then you are forced to resign. But I think we have such a shortage of judges, and particularly at the Supreme Court level, that this 65 age limit is ridiculous. But I said it's in the abstract, because much will depend on the timing, because you see, nobody should say this is done to prevent somebody or to help somebody to continue, and that's damaging for the Supreme Court. So it should be done with a certain amount of advance notice, and it should become effective at a time when nobody can say that we have done it for somebody in mind to be given an extra time to be Supreme Court Chief Justice.
It's very interesting. Both of you, both of you are saying the same things and yet saying such different things, because both of you are saying, yes, in principle, we welcome this. But Abhishek Manu Singhvi, you concluded your first answer by saying you were suspicious of the intention, the motivation behind bringing this, and particularly of the timing of this, coming as it does less than a year before the Lok Sabha election. I want to understand, and I'm going to ask you a direct question. Are you suspicious? Is this suspicion, is this fear coming from a place that this is basically a backdoor extension for the incumbent Chief Justice?
I am neither stating it, nor saying it, nor adopting your formulation at all.
Okay.
All I am saying is that we can all build castles in the air. Have you discussed with parties? Do you have the majority even in the Lok Sabha to do the needful 2/3? Certainly in the Raj Sabha, then in the states, and get this through? Well, if you don't, this trial balloon is a pretty suspicious thing. All of us in the legal profession understand that these balloons floated just before elections have ulterior motives, and I certainly would find it very strange for the government to do it without even initiating the semblance of a discussion with political parties on this. After all, the judiciary concerns our whole nation.
Okay. Dr. Swami, Abhishek Manu Singhvi has a point in as much as, if this is indeed on the cards and if the government is serious about bringing this constitutional amendment in the monsoon session, shouldn't there have been some kind of discussion with other political parties? Surely a move as big as this would need the support of other parties as well. Or do you believe, he's not articulating it, he's not willing to buy my formulation, but he is saying, without saying it, that this is perhaps being done with certain individuals in mind?
No, because it's just at the moment a proposal, and even if it comes into as a constitutional amendment, we need 2/3 majority in Parliament. So there are lots of checks and balances before we effective into law. It's not just a government GO that you can issue.
Yeah.
I think those fears are worth taking into account in deciding the timing.
Okay.
But I don't think that those could be genuine fears, in the sense that the procedure is going to be time consuming, and it has to go through a certain amount of vetting, and therefore it won't happen that you can do it for any specific Chief Justice.
Okay.
In fact, this present Chief Justice is retiring in October, I think.
That is correct, yeah.
And therefore there isn't much time for effecting the necessary legislation.
Okay. Dr. Singhvi, final comment from both you and Dr. Swami. I'm asking you this more as a Congress spokesperson and less as a Supreme Court lawyer. If this Constitution Amendment Bill were to be brought in, and it certainly has to be passed in both houses, you're a member of the Rajya Sabha, will you vote in favor of this Constitution Amendment?
I think the circumstances in the country, the deep distrust, suspicion, misgiving, divisiveness are such that you cannot compare any past period with the contemporary period. Secondly, I have just told you the reasons as to why this will be opposed. As far as I know, certainly not only by the Congress but by many other parties.
Okay.
I don't think the government has taken any initiative to build a consensus, much less a discussion, much less initiate any discussion. Therefore, it is some kind of a digressive, instability generating issue created, both for the country as a whole and for the judiciary.
Okay.
And it is certainly not logical to maintain this dichotomy of 3 years. Instead, if they should at all be doing something, they should be equalizing 62 with 65 for High Court judges.
Okay. Okay.
For the reasons I've already explained.
Okay. So you are basically saying that you and the Congress Party will not support this if indeed this constitutional amendment bill were to be brought in this session. Final word, Dr. Swami. Again, both of you all are saying pretty much the same thing, that this should not be individual specific. It should not be brought in with the intention of helping certain individuals. What about harming certain individuals? Is this being done to stop the number 2 man who is in line, Justice Ranjan Gogoi, who's a fine judge by everybody's account, but was seen amongst the 4 judges who rebelled against the incumbent Chief Justice. Do you believe that the intention of this Constitution Amendment Bill, if it were to be brought in this session, would be to prevent Justice Gogoi from becoming the next CJI? Is that at all possible constitutionally?
Gogoi is a fine judge, and I don't think any sensible government would want to deny him his due, which is a short tenure as not a short tenure, I think it's 1.5 years as Chief Justice. I mean, he is a tough judge, and but he's tough on everybody, and he's a man of extraordinary logical mind. I've appeared before him on a number of cases, and I think he's just Chief Justice material. So I don't think so. See, the thing is that it has to be done. Sometime it is done. I think now we are living longer. We are living longer with better health. The Attorney General is about 86, I think, today. It's only crazy people who decided to have some silly rule like over 75 people should be put to pasture. I think we should not waste human resources like that. Experience is acquired over time. You can't just sell people and put them off, especially when you have a shortage.
Okay.
And so this has to be done at some time, but it should be done with finesse.
Okay, okay. Thanks very much to both Subramaniam Swamy as well as Abhishek Manu Singhvi, top legal and political voices there, joining us at the top of Face Off. But really, this is a story that we broke at 10 a.m. and ever since we put it out on CNN News 18 as well as on News18.com, it's been buzzing in the corridors of Parliament certainly, and buzzing in the corridors of the Supreme Court. Let me now open this up to our guest panel that's joining us here in our studios. Ghanshyam Tiwari, spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. Sanjay Hegde, senior lawyer of the Supreme Court, will be joining us in a moment. Gopal Agarwal is spokesperson of the BJP. And Justice B.A. Khan is former Chief Justice of the Jammu and Kashmir High Court. Ghanshyam, you've heard top legal voices. Will your party support this if a constitutional amendment bill were to be brought in this session?
Well, what I understand from the discussion as it broke out, since the story broke out, is that this is a trial balloon by the government. The government by itself is not admitting. Yes, deep within it in some way distracts, destabilizes the discussion within judiciary and discussion at the at national level. I think in abstract, this is an idea, but the idea needs much more fleshing out. What are the options out there? Who gets benefited? What are the timings? What is the constitutional provision in which this could be brought and not brought?
No, but if it's not individual specific, if it's all judges, 65 to 67 of the Supreme Court, and all judges, high courts from 62 to 64, then why are you so worried that it'll help some, it'll not help some?
Well, at the moment, it is not about judiciary. At the moment, it is the trust deficit that government has created vis-a-vis opposition and vis-a-vis judiciary that that allows me to question the motive of the government.
Okay.
And at the moment, the trust deficit of the government will not allow such a bill to be tabled.
Okay, Justice B.A. Khan, do you believe, again, both Subramaniam Swamy and Abhishek Manu Singhvi seem to suggest that, yes, in abstract, this is great. In principle, this is great, and it should be done. And especially when, Supreme Court judges in the United States are there in that post till they die. And world over, I'm sure the retirement age is well above 65. The question is simply this. In principle, it looks like an idea whose time has come, but are you also suspicious, Justice Khan, of the motivations, the timing, and the intention, and the fact that it may end up benefiting some and hurting some others?
No, I have no reason to be suspicious. I have no basis to be suspicious. In fact, I have been an advocate of this proposal for the last so many years. This is not something new coming up today. This is age-old, so to say. This you will find in, if you see, Venkatachalaya Committee on Constitution, even they recommended it. You will find it number of conferences and seminars this has been recommended. In several conferences of Chief Justices it has been recommended. See, how to attribute a motive to such a proposal. First, we have to see the rationale. I was on your morning show also.
Yeah.
And this initiated with the Attorney General making a farewell speech at the Supreme Court judge's retirement.
Yes, that's right.
And he gave some frivolous reasons For example, he said that by doing this 3 years extension or 2 years extension, a judge will become innovative, which is not the case. Innovation is not by an extension of time. Innovation involves an outlook, innovation involves a judicial approach, it involves a judicial sense. The second thing he said that if you give him more time, then he will preside over a bench, and that bench will have he will have a sway on the other partners of the bench. That is also too, that's totally frivolous, misplaced.
Okay.
Now, even you have a bench, you have to have some knowledge about the working of the judiciary. A bench of 3 judges, there is no question of a presiding judge having a sway over it. If that is the reason for raising the retirement age, I am sorry, there is no basis for it.
Okay.
But the actual basis which we have been demanding always is that please raise, bring it at par as it is with other countries, because the longevity has increased, and therefore this pool of talent which you have, they have experience, please utilize their experience. Plus, this is a step towards ensuring security of tenure and independence, a step towards independence of judiciary, because you find that on the eve of retirement.
Okay, Gopal Agarwal, the question is, Gopal Agarwal, the question is, you heard it from at least 3 people on the panel tonight, from both Dr. Swami and Dr. Singhvi, as well as here Ghanshyam Tiwari. He's saying, yeah, it's fine, bring it in abstract, in principle, we're all on board. But bringing it now, we are less than a year out from an all-important general election. Why bring it now? And you know, why bring it in such a way that there's been no consultation with any other political party, surely. You need the support of other opposition parties if you have to pass this constitutional amendment. And why bring it now? Because it obviously means it will benefit some people and it will hurt some others.
One thing I would like to tell you is that when the BJP or Narendra Modi government brings anything, we do proper homework. So it cannot be like that we will not do the homework and just bring anything and will not be passed through the situation. The second thing is, when everybody is talking that in principle this is a very good concept, it has been brought into by the standing committee, and internationally this has been a regular norm. So what is in principle good, how can it be bad in the implementation? I can't understand. And the third thing is,
Gopal, hang on, Gopal, Ghanshyam's point is, why don't you consult with other parties? There's been no political consultations on this. Surely you need 2/3 support of all members present and voting in both houses, which you don't have, certainly not in one house. Why don't you consult before you bring this in?
No, but the government has not said that we are bringing this. And I told you that the government will do proper homework before anything is brought into. It is not even listed that this will be brought. But I think as a principle, as everybody has said, it's a good thing.
Okay.
It is the need of the time. And you can always question why now. Then the last point I would like to mention is that the people were saying that this is a bubble with a wrong agenda. But if it is a bubble and it is not going to be implemented, what agenda it will fulfill?
Okay, what agenda will it fulfill? Now let me get Sanjay Hegde in. Sanjay Hegde, lawyer at the Supreme Court. Sanjay Hegde, question is, and at least 2 representatives on the panel tonight have said that this is a trial balloon, the government is trying to get at something. Ghanshyam says they are trying to disrupt the existing equilibrium discourse, both in the higher judiciary as well as in Parliament. Whatever the trial balloon or the intentions or motivations are, fact of the matter is, Sanjay Hegde, more than 54,000 cases are pending in the Supreme Court. God knows how many lakh cases are pending before the various high courts. Just the Allahabad High Court alone, there are more than 7 lakh cases pending. Fact of the matter is, there is a desperate need for more judges, and if raising the retirement age is one way of dealing with that problem, not the perfect solution certainly, but one way, then why not?
Why do you assume that people who are from 65 to 67 or from 62 to 64 will do a better job? If you want more judges, please appoint younger people who are more energetic. This question of extending age limits is a different question altogether. The actual argument is that lifespans have increased. There may be a few more productive years in people who have a wealth of experience behind them. But equally, the argument can be that all those years of experience also leads to general fatigue and tiredness. Do you need judges to hang on for 2 more years, getting progressively more old and more tired? I am not very sure that I am entirely in agreement with this.
Okay.
There's one more thing that I would like to say. Why increase the age limit of the Supreme Court to 67 and leave the High Court at 64? If it was left to me, I would have a uniform retirement age for judges in the in the superior judiciary, that is in the constitutional courts. Have the same age for everyone, because this extra 2 years or 3 years in the Supreme Court leads to a lot of heartburn among the high courts.
Okay.
Somebody has made it, somebody has not made it. If everybody has an equal age limit, then it's only people who are truly interested in developing the law and constitutional law who will seek to come to the Supreme Court. Many a person will prefer to continue to rule over the High Court.
No, that point I think was made by Abhishek Singhvi also.
Advocate a uniform
I think Abhishek Singhvi also
age.
made that point at the top of the show. But I come back to, what Ghanshyam has been saying, that he suspects the timing, he suspects the motivations. Why? I mean, where is this suspicion coming from? Where is this, lack of motivation or the lack of integrity in this coming? Yeah, Sanjay. Yeah, okay. Finish, and then I'll come to Ghanshyam.
Zaka, we have seen similar attempts even earlier, even during the Congress regime many years ago, during the time of Justice Bhagwati. The only way that a government can take the sting out of this argument is to say that this change of age will apply only to judges who are appointed hereafter. If you become a judge in the year 2018, then your retirement age will be 67 or something. That way, the entire current lot will continue on the old terms, fresh terms for the fresh lot.
Okay,
then
fair
the
enough.
government can't be seen as playing favorites.
Okay, Ghanshyam, and then I've got a couple of reactions also coming in. We've spoken to former law ministers, but you
even on an idea where there is, in abstract the idea is fine. The question is that there are so many solutions that are available. Sanjay ji said one thing. Between Subramaniam Swamiji and Abhishek Manu Singhi, there are more ideas. The fact is that this government has so far lagged trust or has a trust deficit vis-a-vis opposition and vis-a-vis judiciary to even engage in these discussions. As a result, every time the government puts out something, and in this case it leaked out apparently. So every time something like this happens, this requires a bigger trust build up with the opposition. But the fact that this leaked out in a certain manner and the government is now responding to it in a wishy-washy manner also gives us a hint that government is actually aiming for something else by putting out this.
Okay, I'm not sure I subscribe to that, but anyway, that's his point of view.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Gopal, quick rebuttal, then I got a couple of reactions that I have to
Can I briefly say something?
Yes, quickly.
Yes, the issue is when Mr. Singhvi says that this timing is dubious, that's because Congress, and there is no issue like this in practical creation. These are all Congress creation.
Okay, let me play out a reaction that we got. No, 1 second. We got a couple of reactions that we have to play out. We spoke to Ashwini Kumar, who was law minister, when a similar proposal was contemplated, was mulled when the UPA was in power to increase the retirement age of Supreme Court judges. We spoke to Ashwini Kumar and he said, look, while in principle we welcome, he says the immediate nature of this bill, number one, and number two, the motivations behind this bill make him suspicious of what is it that the government wants to achieve by bringing in this bill. Let me play out Ashwini Kumar. We also have a reaction from Soli Sorabji, former Attorney General. He said something even more interesting. He said that, look, again, I welcome this. This is an idea whose time has come. It needs to be implemented. It would have been better implemented if this proposal was moved after the tenure of the current Chief Justice comes to an end. Let's play out both those reactions. Quick 10-second reactions, and then I'll come back to the panel.
This proposal has been in the works for many years. I know when I was the law minister, at that time also this proposal was mooted. But what is important is the timing of the initiative of the government. The suddenness with which this proposal is sought to be introduced, particularly in the background of what has been happening in the highest echelons of judiciary. But what is a bit surprising to me, both as a political commentator and as a lawyer, is the suddenness with which this move is being introduced now in the monsoon session of Parliament.
You can't go on saying that the age is being raised because the Chief Justice will continue and give judgments in favor of the government. Look at it analytically. Any objection to 65 to 68? I don't think there is any. Timing is the main thing. Yes, I agree that timing does raise certain, well, conjectural suspicions. But that means what? Don't do it at all. My point is, my friend, it should have been done earlier, but does not mean it should not be done at any time. And if you say do it after the Chief Justice retires, maybe. There is something in that. I agree with conjectural suspicions. But that means what? Don't do it at all. My point is, my friend, it should have been done earlier, but does not mean it should not be done at any time. And if you say do it after the Chief Justice retires, maybe. There is something in that. I agree with you.
Okay. Even someone like Asuri Sorabji, Sanjay Hegde says, it would have been better if this was done after the tenure of the current Chief Justice comes to an end, particularly so because there's been such friction, there's been such open friction in the higher echelons of the judiciary. Maybe if those wounds had healed and maybe after this term came over and if they moved this, it would have been less controversial and people wouldn't have had reason to suspect the motivations or the timing.
No, then people would have said that you waited for one man to retire and you wanted the other man who's come in, you are extending his tenure. So each time that you seek to bring this proposal, there will always be this problem. Therefore, my advice, if it is sought, would be please bring this proposal, this proposed amendment with prospective effect, only for fresh appointments. The current lot, whoever is a judge, should expect to retire on the day that he expected to when he was sworn in. Please don't dangle this extra few years to any of the current judges.
No, but can I ask, are you also suspicious of the motivations and the timing and the intentions?
See, I am always suspicious of the timing of any government which sends this lollipop in front of the incumbent judges. As Ashwini Kumar told you, this was a proposal which was mooted in the Congress government, and Ashwini Kumar, for one, definitely knows that it was mooted in the Congress government of Indira Gandhi as well. So each time that a government of the day seeks to soften up the judiciary, this kind of proposal comes up and people get suspicious. So the independence of the judiciary, the perception of independence of the judiciary is a very valuable thing. Therefore, if you say that, okay, what has happened so far, let it remain, only in future will we apply this.
In light of some of the critical cases, constitutional matters that are lying before the Supreme Court, Ghanshyam Tiwari, look at cases like the Ram Janmabhoomi title dispute, the Aadhaar matter, now Section 377. How may this affect, if this proposal indeed comes through and people vote and the Constitution is amended, what may it result in? And if it doesn't happen, then what?
Well, clearly, we have faith in judiciary. So we believe that these proposals, these trial balloons, does not affect the judgment of judiciary and its
as an institution.
Stature as an institution who's an important pillar of democracy and constitution, even in the backdrop of what Justice Chalimeshwar has said and other judges have said.
But you don't think interpretations of law vary from judge to judge? from bench to bench?
They do. But as politicians, as the political class, we have only one hope: build further hope and strength in the judiciary. We cannot go and build suspicion around the judiciary. Even in the wake of, I am saying that what the judges have said, we can question the government because the government represents the political class. But in questioning the government, you look at how something like this gets interpreted. The moment a news like this breaks in, people start fearing the government. Why do they fear the government? When the news on RTI broke out that the government wants to amend RTI, immediately on social media, on various platforms, Save RTI campaign started, because this government is not seen as a government that wants to further democracy. Second, when the news on judiciary came out, has this government really in the last 4 years worked to ensure that the case backlog in India is diminished? It has not. Look at the vacancy that already exists in the Supreme Court. Look at what has happened with the collegium. Look at what the vacancies that exist in High Court.
Gopal,
so when the government has not batted for
yeah,
reducing the backlog in judiciary.
There's already, I think, 6 vacancies in the Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 6 vacancies in the Supreme Court. If you really were interested in the pendency of cases and the massive backlog, even in the Supreme Court there's more than 50,000 cases pending. If you were really interested in dealing with that, you would straight away appoint 6 judges.
Definitely, that is one of the solutions.
Okay, 9 vacancies.
The government is keen to appoint on the fill the vacancies in the Supreme Court and the High Court and other judges. It's an important thing. Government also want to set up multiple district courts also. These are important issues. But then there has to be a consensus on collegium. There is a difference with regard to collegium and process of appointment of the judges, and that cannot be, government cannot be taken for granted on every issues. So that is one part of it, and I agree with some part of Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari that we cannot doubt the integrity of our judges so high in the Supreme Court that they will their integrity is at doubt with 2 years of extension. That's not the case. I do not subscribe to this issue, and their decision will be as impartial.
No, fair enough. Nobody is doubting. Nobody is doubting anybody's integrity. But I'm asking you a simple question. One second, Gopal. Answer the simple question. If pendency of cases was the reason for even thinking of such a proposal, why not just appoint 9 more new judges in the Supreme Court?
But then I told you that it is the process of appointment of judges. There is a difference between the court and the government. There is a process, and it's not with current government only. It arose from earlier governments also. There is a question with regard to collegium method and the appointment with even the parliament had a different opinion, and the Supreme Court has a different opinion.
Okay.
So the government cannot just be pulled away through this.
No, but Justice B.A. Khan, as I understand, the government wanted to do away with the collegium system. They brought in the NJAC. The NJAC did not stand scrutiny in the highest court of the land. Now the existing system, for better or for worse, is the collegium. And in the Supreme Court itself, like I've been saying, there are 9 vacancies. Why not accept the recommendations, accept the choices that have been arrived upon by the Supreme Court, if at all they have? I don't know if they have arrived at 9 conclusive candidates on whom they want the government to go ahead. But the fact is, there is an existing system. Justice B.A. Khan.
You are asking me after keeping me here for 45 minutes.
Sir, I did come to you before.
Now, and you are see, most of the questions you are asking from a panel who have no experience or any knowledge about the working of the judiciary, and you are confusing the issue. Issue is not that by appointment of 7 judges some areas are going to be wiped away. Issue is not that the pendency, we have 3 crores of cases in the lower courts, we have 40 lakhs cases in the high courts, we have 40,000 cases in the Supreme Court. That is, this move of retirement age being raised is not being done to deal with that pendency. It can only help to an extent because we have problems in the recruitment processes. Recruitment processes, one must have a knowledge why there is a problem, because it has to go through the chief minister, if it is a high court judge, it has to go through the governor, it has to go through the law minister, it has to go ultimately through the agency's scrutiny and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And then there is ultimately a government's viewpoint whether to clear a particular person or not to clear a particular person. So for God's sake be clear that this proposal is only on the analogy of what is there existing in other countries. For example, you look at any other country, you will have a retirement age of judge ranging 70 above. In America, as Dr. Subramanian Swamy was saying, it's for life unless he gets disabled.
Okay.
So it is only to provide a security of tenure to a judge. You know, we have problems, we have complaints that at the fag end, a judge becomes vulnerable. Now, if a judge has a security of tenure, if a judge has this much length of time known to him after 70, he will not be interested in getting tempted to do anything. So it will help. That's why I'm saying it's a step towards independence of judiciary.
Okay.
So why are you confusing?
No, because every time such a proposal has been floated, every time can I make my point? I mean, you may want to dismiss it as saying that pendency of cases has no relevance to why the government is mulling this proposal, but every time when the UPA was in power or governments before came up with this proposal of raising the age, the excuse, and I'm using my words very carefully, the excuse that was cited was pendency of cases. If there were no 50,000 cases pending in the Supreme Court, then why should you raise the retirement age? If government employees, government servants, secretaries to the government of India are retiring at 58, then I don't see any reason why Supreme Court judges should retire 10 years later or 9 years later. It's always pendency.
Please read Jawaharlal Nehru's speech in the Constituent Assembly on the question which you are asking. When the question of fixing of the retirement age of the judges arose. Please go through that speech, you will come to know what is the difference between the administrative secretaries and a judge. That's one part of it. Second part is that the earlier moves, when there was a move in 2010 to raise the age of the High Court judges to bring it at par with the Supreme Court judges, you know, because that was done because we were faced with a problem, and that problem was that most of the Chief Justices of the High Courts were running after the elevation of the Supreme Court. So it was thought that if they are given the same uniformity of age as Dr. Abhishek Singhvi was suggesting, as Sanjay also was suggesting, if there is a uniformity of retirement age between Supreme Court judges and the High Court judges, half of that race will be over. That will be
May I, sir, humbly remind you that even after this proposal, even if this constitution amendment as proposed by the government were to go through, that uniformity question will not be addressed. High Court judge will retire at 64 and Supreme Court judge will retire at 67. This bill as has been envisioned will not address the uniformity question.
We have a serious problem on that account.
Fair enough.
On that.
Fair enough.
Advocate that there has to be a uniformity.
This bill will not address that concern.
Between a High Court judge and a Supreme Court
judge.
Sir,
this bill will not address that concern. Anyway, I'll give the final word to Sanjay Hegde. Sanjay Hegde.
No, but it's all in the matter of speculation so far.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
There is no movement, there is no bill, there is nothing introduced.
Sanjay Hegde, I'll give you the final word. The fact of the matter is, if this bill were to be brought in this current session, and I don't know if it will be passed or not, because like I said, constitutional amendment requires 2/3 majority in both houses of members present and voting. Would you still be suspicious of the intentions of the government? Would you still be suspicious of the motivations and whether this may benefit someone and obstruct somebody else?
I have said it before also, that I would be suspicious of the motives of any government which brings it, or any government which floats a proposal like this at the fag end of its career. So there is cause for suspicion. Let's leave it at that. I would earnestly appeal to the government, take that suspicion out. Please make the amendment, if any, prospective to new judges only.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much, Ghanshyam Tiwari, Justice B.A. Khan, Sanjay Hegde, and Gopal Agarwal for joining us on this talking point. Like I said, this is a story that we broke at 10 a.m. And right through the day. This was the first day of the monsoon session, definitely in the corridors of Parliament, in the corridors of the Supreme Court. This story had huge resonance. I just want to play out what Ravi Shankar Prasad, the Minister for Law and Justice, said. Reporters asked him when he came out of the Lok Sabha today, reporters asked him about this story because obviously reporters had got wind of the story and it was on air from 10 a.m. here on CNN News 18. He gave us a 6-second bite. It was a one-word bite. He gave us a 6-second bite. I want to play out that 6-second bite and then I will put that into context before I take a break.
Sir, is the government considering raising the retirement age of judges of the Supreme Court and High Court?
No, with a capital N.
That was a 6-second bite. No with a capital N. And with due respect, with utmost respect to the minister, as I take a break, all I'm going to say is this, that at CNN News 18, we stand by our story. There has so far not been an official denial. An official denial comes on paper. It comes as a statement issued by the Press Information Bureau. And in this case, because it also concerns other ministries other than Law and Justice, certainly concerns the Prime Minister's office, an official denial would have come as a statement on paper from the Prime Minister's office, from the PIB, the Press Information Bureau. No such thing has happened since we broke that story at 10 a.m. this morning. It's been 10 hours since we broke that story. So we stand by our story. Quick break. When we come back on the other side, our exclusive newsmaker tonight, H.D. Kumaraswamy, his first interview to a national news channel after becoming Chief Minister. Whole host of issues. What's making him cry these days? His tenuous relationship with ally, the Congress. And will he back the Congress in this no confidence motion that comes up Friday in Parliament? All that and more in an exclusive chat coming up on the other side.